December 4th, 2025. It's year 4, day 284 since the full-scale invasion began. A warm welcome I greet you to the Daily Situation Report. 2 days ago, I reported that Putin announced plans to establish a new buffer zone in the north of Ukraine, or to expand the 2 existing ones. That wasn't entirely clear from his wording, which is why I mentioned it that way in, I think, the second to last situation report. But at least in Wovchansk, we can see that there are now new Russian territorial gains that are significant enough to definitely deserve a place in today's report. They have managed to bring almost the entire northern part of the city under their control. They also control all 3 bridges, and therefore all 3 crossing points between the northern and southern parts of the city. These are these 3 bridges here, this one, and the one over there. As far as I know, this one was destroyed, and this one is hardly passable anyway because it was badly damaged. But according to my information, the Russians were able to place a temporary bridge here, which means it's theoretically passable again in the middle. Not the one on the right here. That one should actually still be intact. This means the Ukrainians lose the ability to get to the north of the city. The Russians will use the river as a natural barrier and now advance a bit further to the south. What we can see here in these areas, so basically right here, they will probably try to capture this road intersection. All this is just to create enough space between the bridges and new positions, so that they can dig in and directly isolate the north of the city from the Ukrainians. On the Russian side, it's mainly the 128th and the 136th. Motorized Rifle Brigade on the attack. Those are these 2 here, while on the Ukrainian side, it's the 57th and 58th. Motorized Rifle Brigade and also the 72nd Mechanized Rifle Brigade are on the defense. A little farther east at Tyche, it's just as hard. The Ukrainians are currently defending here against the Russians, who have also managed to capture large parts of the village. There are still ongoing battles right now, so there is no result yet, but the situation looks very bad. We haven't seen such a large attack like the one we witnessed here in the past 1.5 years. So since around May 2024, when the attack started here in the region, and such a large territorial gain, especially in the city and also over here, is something you hardly ever see. That will only be a big problem for the Ukrainians if the Russians are able to capture this village here. Personally, I assume that they will capture Tyche in the next few hours, since the last Ukrainian supply route into the eastern part of the city of Vovchansk runs through here. That means if they fully capture this village, then all the troops that are still in the yellow area and in the light blue area here will be cut off. They will then have to find a way to cross the water somehow, which means that vehicles and heavy equipment will probably be left behind. The infantrymen will try to cross on their own, which is pretty stupid, because this is also the only bridge that leads to the upper part, that is, to the northern part. So if Russians captured it, this bridge would be gone even if Ukrainians tried to keep supplying here, and thus the entire area here, north of the river, would be dominated by the Russians. We can also see further to the east here, there are higher hills and hardly any road that leads up here again. Putin spoke 2 days ago about treating Ukraine with surgical precision and great care, which of course is not something you can see day by day. I've thought about this statement for a long time, and maybe he's not entirely wrong, because if we think about what the Russians consider precise, it's usually not what we in the West recognize as precise. A missile is considered precise if it hits within a meter of the target. For a Russian precision weapon, that's already precise. At the end, it rises again. Here we see another road that goes up once more. Thank you very much. The Ukrainian Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrsky reports that Ukrainian units continue to hold the north of Pokrovsk and that Russian attempts to bypass Monorad and Pokrovsk are being blocked. The lines remain under heavy pressure, and they are preventing flanking maneuvers and also keeping the supply routes under their own control. And that's exactly right, as he says, because in the end he confirms exactly what I have marked on my situation map over the past few weeks. He's technically right, especially about the supply routes, including the one out of here. It's still under Ukrainian control, We don't have any Russian soldiers within about 1 to 1.5 kilometers of here. But that doesn't mean it's safe, and that's exactly the point I wanted to make. But what else can we infer? Small Ukrainian units seek out and disrupt Russian units, then vanish after a skirmish instead of holding territory block by block. At the same time, Ukraine is trying to prevent Russian assault troops from massing at all and to block flanking maneuvers. This slows down the pace and forces Russia into smaller, less coordinated attacks that can be repelled more easily. Syrskyi stresses personnel protection. This argues for short, closely coordinated operations and quick rotations of small units, instead of getting large battalions bogged down in costly urban combat. At the same time, he shows a focus on additional supply routes, and especially on better evacuation of the wounded, where the pressure is highest. Supply routes are under fire, making it hard to transport the wounded. Russian artillery controls movement. The drone situation is crucial. Russian first-person view swarms and recon units are deciding the battle here. That's why survival in Pokrovsk and Monorad depends just as much on drone defense and electronic countermeasures as it does on concrete and sandbags. His conclusion: the battle continues and must be seen in context. Pokrovsk is no longer a stable fortress, but rather a combat zone where Ukraine is buying time, disrupting Russian advances, and at least preserving its own forces in the northern part of the city in order to continue fighting on the next line. Russia advances through infiltration en masse, while Ukraine trades space for time, exhausting assault units and preparing to transition to new positions. This is exactly the picture that is currently emerging here on the situation map. Although Ukrainians have suffered fewer losses than expected and haven't been overrun, the situation remains extremely bad. And the Russians have also managed to gain more ground in the east, right here at this spot. This area here is now also under Russian control, which of course increases the pressure on all the adjacent yellow sectors. And then afterwards, of course, also on Monorad, which is already in a very, very difficult semi-encirclement here. You know Patrick, he runs the War and Tactic merch shop. He often drives to Ukraine to deliver vehicles we provided through Berlin in many donation campaigns. He's going over again now and has a little idea that he'd like to tell you about himself.
Yeah, hey Mr. Pat, most of you already know me, either from my documentary or from my previous trips. I've got another vehicle here, this time a Mazda BT50, which we bought with Ukraine Aid Berlin and your donated money. And I'm taking it to Ukraine over Christmas and New Year's. About 5 or 6 weeks ago, I came back from Simi where I delivered a vehicle. Do I still have something really exciting to tell? I'll show you a video about that on my channel soon. Johnny will definitely link that on the War and Tactic channel as well. And yes, we're collecting again for Ukraine aid, for frontline rescue vehicles. And if you still have something left, I would appreciate it if you support my campaign this year. As I said, I'm going over there for Christmas and New Year's, and I wanted to give the Ukrainian soldiers some small Christmas gift bags on site. That means when I'm in Ukraine, I'll go shopping there and pack small bags with a Ukrainian family and give them to the soldiers. So if you still have €1 to spare, the PayPal link is below. I'd be glad if you could join too. There will also be videos and photos. And yes, otherwise keep donating to support Ukraine. And yes, thank you for your attention.
Sure, Pat, we'll do that. The link to his PayPal channel is the first one in the video description. Satellite images and analyses by Radius Voboda show the following. This fall, Ukrainian forces struck over 50 key targets in Russia, including refineries, fuel depots, and arms factories. There has never been an attack wave of this intensity before. The consequences are noticeable. Moscow has to withdraw forces and equipment for object protection, while shortages of fuel and ammunition are increasing. In short, the Ukrainian long-range attacks are forcing Russia to shift resources from the front to the rear, and this weakens both military effectiveness and logistics. If we can assume that this will become even more intense in the future, then I see major problems coming for the Russian economy in 2026, especially in the oil and gas sectors. Russian troops have shelled a perinatal center in Kherson, According to the head of the regional military administration, doctors were in the middle of a delivery during the attack. International humanitarian law gives special protection to hospitals, maternity clinics, and medical staff. Shelling such facilities is a clear violation. Although the Russians rarely follow existing laws, this still can't be morally justified. In Crimea, the Ukrainians attacked a MiG-29 with drones. So we can see that there is progress when it comes to the gradual recapture of airspace. Likewise, another radar was also hit by a drone. Special thanks to the Algro crew channel members, especially Lieutenant Colonel Renicky. As always, thank you for listening. Subscribe, like, comment, and see you in the next report.